Alright guys, hey, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. I tried to change the layout a little bit, and tell me how you like it. Today we're going to go over endgames, and this is kind of what I wanted to transition to, not like just live blitz games, just actually trying to get better. It's gonna be a good day. I have a lot to cover. I'm gonna try to cover a lot of pawn endgames and basic endgames, and where people have gone wrong and stuff. And we're gonna follow Mark Deveretsky's book. He has a great endgame book called the Endgame Manual, and it's like that's basically the Bible for chess. So let's just get right into it. And we're gonna follow his book extensively, and we're gonna go position by position in his book. It's like a 300-page book, but so basically, in this position, if it is black to move, it's a draw. It's a win, and it's a simple concept of opposition, right? And basically, all you want to do, and all you want to know, is that opposition is when you have an odd number of squares away from the opponent's king, right? So there's one square, there's distant opposition where there's 3 squares away, and really distant, right? So 5 squares away. And it's also about converting, sometimes it's about converting distant into close opposition, and if you're able to do it or not. So this is a classic example. If it's black to move, you lose, black loses, and if it's white to move, it's a draw. And the correct technique is you want to maintain opposition. Right? The king can never make any progress, and you're going to keep dancing. Right? But this, even though it's opposition, it's not direct opposition, but diagonal opposition, this is actually losing for black. Alright? And I'll show you why this is a draw first, and then we'll go into why this is losing. Right? So let's say here. And he doesn't want to dance around the pawn, so he's going to push the pawn. Bam. Very important move. Really important move is that you want to decide where your king goes based on where the other king goes. You don't want to go here or here, because then he can get opposition. Okay? So example here, if you decide quickly, then it's boom, and I'm able to make a queen. Right? Because of this and here and queen. So what you want to do is you want to play king here, and when he decides to peek out, then you go in front of him. Now, they might try to trick you, right? And if you go here, then it's losing because he gets opposition, right? You always want to count an odd number of squares away, right? So you want to go here, and when they peek their head out in front of the pawn, then you go here, because after pawn checks, go in front of the pawn, and it's a stalemate, because the king covers these squares and the pawn covers these squares. And stalemate is when the king doesn't have any legal moves, or the enemy doesn't have any legal moves. Then it's a draw. Okay. Now I want to put this a little bit. Let's go back into the analysis board in here, and I'll set up a new position for you guys. And this is like the classic position. Just make sure you guys can see that. Just give me a second. Yeah, you guys can see that. Alright, great. And okay, so what you want to do in this position, if it's white to move, it's a win. If it's black to move, it's a draw. Right? And this is all to do with opposition. And so we're going to go step by step. You want to get your king in front of the pawn first, right? And then king moves out, king in front of the pawn, and you want to get opposition. Very important that you have a space between you and the pawn, right? So I have one space between you and the pawn. When the king goes to one side, right? Because opposition is basically like, hey, I'm taking these 3 squares. I want to go to these 3 squares. Give me one of them to go to. If he goes back, then you're going to just make space and say, hey, I want to keep advancing my king. Right? So you take these 3 squares, and the king can't move anymore. So let's say the king goes this way, and then you cut this way, because now from these 3 squares that you wanted to go to, this one's available. Right? So you go here, If the king comes up, very easy, you play d4, right, and then you're gonna walk this pawn all the way here. So very easy. Right, so let's say the king sidesteps, king here, and work with the king, right? If the king goes back, bam. Now what you want to do is, once your king gets there, this is basically the ideal spot for your king. So what you want to do is you want to push the pawn now. Bam. And now remember this position. This position is the golden position, where your king is in front of the other king and the pawn is behind the king. This is winning for white no matter whose turn it is. Okay? So if it's black to move here, bam, and we're going to get a queen. Right? You can't take because the king is protecting it. Right? And then queen. Great. Now if it's white to move, then it's easy. So I have to change it though. Let's see if we can make it white to move from here. If not, I'll just make a new one. How about I just do this? And I'll just keep it in an analysis board so we can change it. If it's white to move, then it's here, right? Because he wants to maintain opposition, right? So if here, then we have an easy win, and we get back to the same position, right? You get the queen. Right, so here, push, bam, and then we get a queen. Okay, simple enough. Awesome. Alright, so let's go into the next example. And if you guys have any questions at any time, just let me know. Actually, I should set up my phone to see if any questions. But give me a second. Alright, so I have to look for the position. Alright, so this is the next position that he has in his book. So the king on b5, king on b6, sorry. Here, and it is, I think it's white to move. It is white to move. So this is how to promote a pawn. And this topic is just about promoting the pawn. Okay, so here I'll challenge you to make the best moves, and I'll give you about 30 seconds, and that starts now. Okay, great. And the answer is actually not king c6 in view of king a7, because if king a7, right, he's going to go here, and then you have to play here, and then it's a draw, right? And if you try to do anything else, right, so let's say he plays king here, play king here, and now it's a draw, right? Because your king is behind the pawn instead of being in front, right? So instead, you play king a6. Now when he gets opposition, right, and now you can win. Right, so I'll go over that one more time. So instead of playing king c6, where he can then push the pawn and comes here for a stalemate trick, right, you want to play king a6, and then you push the pawn. I think it's pretty easy. Pretty easy. Push. Well, don't do that, right? So I have the king here, then bam, and then you're able to make the queen. Awesome. Alright, so let's see what the next example is. Alright, so it's a white to move. There's a pawn on b4, And this is super important if you want to be a good chess player. Just going over these endgame scenarios. And the king is over here. Great. So, let's see what his question is. Let's see. Alright, so he's asking us to solve it. And he's asking us what the correct strategy is. Okay, so again, another 30 seconds. Try to solve it on your own. If you can't solve it, don't worry about it. We'll go over it together. And that 30 seconds starts now. And I'll put some music for you guys. That way, you guys can just like chill and relax. So most of this is just us going over some stuff. I had something that I was recently listening to. It's by Homage. Let me see if I can go into my history. Yeah. Maybe that for you guys. All right. All right. So this is a HomageBeats. So it's just in the background. All right. And so the correct way to play this is King C2. They're going to try to bring that thing up. King B3. And not to play King C4 because although it looks like it's winning, right? Because we're going to go to the pawn anyways. This actually draws, right? So what we want to do instead is we want to play King A4, so that when we go here, bam. Now this is an opposition, but we can gain opposition. Boom. The king has to make way, right? So let's say he goes this way, we go this way. Bam. Bam. Get opposition. And if you guys remember this, boom, and it relates, right? This is right? Great. And we get a queen. So for those of you who do not know how to mate with just one queen yet, don't worry about it, it'll be coming up. I just want to get to the end game portion first. I had a grandmaster once tell me that when he was back home in the Ukraine, they played with pawns and kings first. They didn't know that there were other pieces on the board. So when they first started chess, all he had was a pawn and a king, and he was just trying to promote pawns and kings. So their fundamentals are really, really strong. So a really, really funny story. All right, let's go over the next example. Let's go over. Okay. So actually, this is a game. It's from 1952. It's by J. Moravec, and I'll set up the position right now. There is a king on F1 and a king on F1. There's a pawn here. There's a black pawn here, and there's a king I think on C8. Yeah, bam. All right. So in this example, it is white to move. So white to move. And we have to try to make the best move possible. Okay? Actually, this pawn is here. Sorry about that. And just make the best move possible. And I'll give you, this is a little selfie, so I'll give you another 45 seconds. I'll give you 45 seconds. Starting now. I'll put the music up for you guys. This beat is lovely. I don't know. I really like it. Alright, and you guys have another 10, 15 seconds.
This is a HomageBeats.
Great. So let's head back, and what did you guys come up with? So let's try to tackle some moves first. King F2 just seems natural, so let's play it. Okay, so let's say the king plays here. Would you guys play here? Okay. Let's just try to get this. Bam. And I think we're winning this, right? Cool. So let's see what happens if we play a different way. So let's go back. Maybe there's a trick that we haven't calculated. Okay, so let's play King F2, and let's see what the text says. On King F2, he's gonna play H4, not allowing the king to get to this square. And we'll go over the notes after we finish the example. But let's say you play King F3, that's actually refuted. Refuted means that it is done. It can't do it anymore. By H3, very strong. Now, when you take this pawn, once the king gets here, it's a draw. You cannot mate with this. So let's say it goes like this, right? This pawn, you can never make that king move out of that corner. And unfortunately, no matter what you do, it's gonna be a draw. And that's a stalemate. Okay? So we had to find a way to tackle the situation. So we can't play G4, right? Because G4 allows en passant and this comes off the board, right? En passant is when a pawn goes 2 squares on the first move. On that next move, since you skipped that pawn's capture square, he has the option to capture. And that's called en passant, or it's French for in passing. Alright, so H4. Alright, so what would I do? I don't know. This is pretty hard. I think I've seen this before. Okay, so F, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, right? I can't push my pawn, so the only reasonable plan was to go this way, right? Okay, so let's see what the text says. All right, King G1. King G1 is actually the best move because, one, you don't want to put your pawn on the H file because then it's going to be a draw, right? So you want the king to come around, and let's see. On H3, the move that was good for him before, you played G3. And so let's say he tries to get over there again. He's actually a little bit too late, and we get into the same position that we had just mirrored before. And if you guys remember how to win this, I will demonstrate it just slowly. They can't come up, right? Because they're just gonna, right? Bam, bam, bam. They can't go to this side, right? Because bam, right? Your pawn's gonna promote. And they cannot go to this side because, of course, we have our friend. Wait, sorry. No, it was like this. Bam, 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 bam. Okay, and they're promote. Cool. So let's go over that one more time. And we'll go over some of the notes that Mark Dvoretsky's. Actually, Mark Dvoretsky died not too long ago. So RIP to him. He was amazing. Just one of the best creative books ever.
Life is measured in moments.
And I want to give my condolences to his family, but he was amazing. Amazing person.
This is a HomageBeats.
We'll keep listening to some HomageBeats, and then let's see. So there is a pawn on H4, right? Just put it down a little bit. Alright, so king f2, and let's say he just plays like this. Oh, oops, sorry. On this he plays this, and then you play king g1, and let's say he starts going up immediately to try to, okay, he's a little bit too late. You work your magic all the way up the board until you get into this position. Doesn't matter what he does. You push. If he goes this way, what do? Do you play here? No. Right? Okay, great. So, what do? Right? Because if he has opposition, then it's a draw, right? So you can't play like that. If he has opposition, so oops, sorry, still an analysis board. You can't do that regularly. So what you want to do is, if he has opposition, just push once. Right? It'd be much better to keep track of the moves. Sorry. It'd be better to keep track of the moves once. Oops. Okay. Bam. Whoa. Why am I drawing this? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna set this up. Why can't I win this? Set this up. Done. Okay, great. Alright, so G4, King H8, I'm gonna play G5 here. I has opposition. Bam, King H6, he's gonna play King here. G6, bam, there we go. I just wasn't keeping track of whose turn it was. Jesus. Alright, yeah. So the point, so set position here. The point is, it's opposition is good, but you also have to be wary about where your pawn is landing as well. That also dictates whether it's a winning position or a drawn position in pawn endgames. Alright, and let's see. So he says on the immediate King G1, King D7, and Black's king is successful. Okay, Black's king is now successful. Well, successfully defends the pawn. Whereas now he's too late. So let's say on King G1.
This is a HomageBeats.
And I think this is the last one we'll listen to, and then actually we'll just stop it right here. On King G1 immediately, then King D7, here. Now the king is in time. It doesn't matter what happens. This is a draw, right? And then bam, draw. Right. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's go to the next one. And welcome. So let's go to the next one. What's the next one in the text? Okay, this one. The lady playing white, which is cool, versus Stanzu. She was Scotland's board 1 and resigned in a position. So let's go with that one. That one's gonna be really interesting. It's this, and let me just make sure that that's that. Alright, and it is I don't know, you had to see this for yourself. This is pretty bad. So she resigned in this position. Right? Let's see. He doesn't give anything on this, but this is just called a tragicomedy because it's a tragedy and a comedy at the same time. So let's say it's black to move and they can't defend the pawn, right? Of course you can't defend the pawn, but when they take the pawn, you can gain opposition, right? And since their king is in front of the pawn, but he has to push, right? You see that? So when you gain opposition, if this pawn were here, he's able to reverse opposition, right? But since this pawn is there, he's not able to reverse opposition anymore, and he can never get out of this perpetual movement of just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, right? So once the king goes there, then boom, now we know this is a draw. When the king and the pawn are on the same rank, it's a draw. Move here, bam, bam, oops, not like that. Peek the head out, bam, bam, bam. We do this thing called the King's Tango, where the kings just keep dancing around each other. And then finally, when one decides to peek his head out, bam, then he plays check, boom, and it's a draw. Okay. So what ended up happening in this game is that she thought it was a win for black. She thought it was a win for black, so she resigned in this position instead of just playing on, and it would have been a draw. So I always say, play out your games. You never know. But let's go on to the next Tragicomedy. The second Tragicomedy, he has it in his example. Let's go back to the board. It's like this. There's a rook on f5, a pawn on f5. F6, I think. Bam, bam, bam. I think there's a. Okay, so there's this. And okay, so I think we're at the position right now. Great. So white plays rook f4, because if trades takes, this is a draw. And who was this played by? This is actually good to know, so you can go back and study this if you want to. So this is by Spielman and Duras in Carlsbad, 1907, so 111 years ago. And he played rook f4. I think with normal drawing chance, like you can draw this, but he played rook f4, but he doesn't have to take. He plays here instead, forcing him to take because the rook is pinned to his king. Can't move it, so you don't want to leave this, and then it's a win because now black has opposition, right? Bam, bam, bam. Can't go up because of this, right? And if here, hold in position, bam, bam, and we're gonna get a queen. And that rook f4 move was a doozy. Alright, so let's go to the next one. So now he's talking about corresponding squares. So corresponding squares, and I'll just read this verbatim. Corresponding squares are squares of reciprocal zigzag. Zigzag is a position where you can't make a good move. Every move that you're able to make is a bad move. So he continues. We may speak of corresponding squares for kings with pawns, and with other material. We may speak of correspondence between any pairs of pieces. The most commonly seen cases of corresponding squares are the opposition, mined squares, and triangulation, and we'll get into this right now. So we were just talking about opposition, and this is how he defines opposition. Opposition is the state of two kings standing in the same file with one square separating them. That's close opposition. 3 or 5 squares between them is called distant opposition. The opposition may be vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. So to get the opposition means to achieve this standing of the kings 1 square apart with the opponent to move. That means you go into it. So I'll show you on the board. You go into it. Let's say this is it. Bam, now it's your opponent's move, and now you have opposition. So I gained opposition by moving it into 1, 3, or 5 squares away. And this would be a draw. And I'll go back to the text. And to fall into opposition means, conversely, to fall into zigzag oneself. Okay, and we're gonna go over some more pawn endgames. This one is amazing. This is an amazing puzzle. I give this to all of my students to solve. Alright. And it is, let's see, who does it do with? Oh, it's black to move. I have to change that. Okay, so it's black to move, and let's see. All right, so I'll give you guys 30 seconds to try to solve how black can try to salvage this position. And in the text it says white has the opposition, but it's not enough to win. So here white has opposition, obviously, because he's one square away, but this is not enough to win. Alright, so the only move to win, to draw, is king c7. Okay, so king c7 is a move you should play, and king a7 is a mistake. The reason is because on king a7 you get the opposition with the pawn. Okay, so I'll show you that right now. Just give me a second, let me just open this up. Excuse me, sorry about that. Okay, so let's go back. On king a7, bam, a5. On takes, now we have opposition, right? Because we moved, let me show that again, because we moved into the square, bam, we moved in front of him an odd number of squares away, bam. Maintain opposition when he moves, bam, 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 and we win. Cool. So let's go back to position. Okay, so king c7, and now c7 doesn't work because it's a side pawn, it's a rook pawn, right? These two do not work together. You cannot promote it if a king's in front of that pawn, unless you have another piece, of course. All right, so it's pretty easy to do, but let's see if he puts up a little bit more resistance. Okay, so on king c7, a6, trying to outflank his opponent, right? Oops, sorry, trying to outflank his opponent. Let's say play king c6, right? c5, again, c5 is just useless. King c6, king a7, trying to push the king off of it. Okay. King a7, king c7, maintaining opposition. Now black has opposition and saying, hey, I don't really got to go anywhere. Okay, king c7. Alright, king c7, king a8, and now critical move, you want to keep opposition. Bam. That's tough. King c8. King c8, maintaining the opposition. He can't push one of his pawns. He can't push this pawn because I'm going to take and I promote, right? Right? Because if takes, I promote and I go down here. If push, then I take this way and he can't promote anyways, and I'm promoting. Right? So amazing, amazing. So, but you cannot play. So let's go back here. On king a8, you cannot play king c6. because now he outflanks you. King b8. Right? Let's say you start play here. Bam, 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 and you cannot stop this pawn now because you cannot get in front of the pawn. And your team moves too short. Okay. This reminds me of one of my favorite endgame puzzles as well. I hope that it comes up. Oh, actually, it's the next one. So, since, let's see what he says in the... If we move the position one file to the right, white would win because king d7 is met by d5. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Okay. So let's try to shift this. Oh wait, we need to go into our analysis. Set a position. So let's say we would shift this position one file to the right. Let's see what he's saying. If we move this position one file to the right, why would we win? Because king d7 is met with d5, right? Because we're going to get opposition. Right? And if, let's move the a pawn back to a3. Okay, awesome. Okay, great. So now let's set up the next position. This is one of my favorite positions. And it's like this. There's a pawn here and a pawn here. I believe that's the position. And white's going up. Well, it's the same position, just, okay, so I'll just set it up the other way, just so we don't cause any confusion. So it's like this. White king is here, here. There's two black pawns going down. White king is here. Alright, and I'm pretty sure this is the position. Okay, great. And it is white to move in this position. So white to move in this position, and we have to draw this. So this is an endgame this is a puzzle that you should know, and if you're new to chess, remember these like beginning positions because they might happen in your games. And the more positions you know, the more positions you know how to win or draw, or know the situations, the ideas, and that can help you out later as you get stronger. So I'll give you like about 30 seconds. So 30 seconds and all. I'll turn on this light. Sorry guys, I should have just turned this on. It might have seemed really dark before. Okay. Alright, so getting direct opposition doesn't work here because here, 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 and we can't go here, so we have to make way somehow, and now he gets opposition, right? Let's say we don't give him opposition. Let's say we go here, we still get opposition, and we have to protect your pawn, and now he gets opposition. Okay, so the one way that you have to get opposition, or you have to work him, is that if direct opposition doesn't work, we need to try distant opposition. Okay, so distant opposition is king h1, and if king d2, bam. And so instead of getting closer, so sometimes when you're playing chess, you think that if you're closer to something, that means you're defending something well, but you have to analyze. If you do get closer, you can't defend it well. So let's say you go here, now you get opposition, bam, and we would be winning in this case. Or we can even go under. And in the same example, once you take, this goes over here, right? So King h1, king d2, king h2. Very important. King d3, king h3. Okay? Place here, whatever. Right, and what we want to do is that whenever he enters these squares, we have opposition. We want to follow him with distant opposition. If he gets near the pawn, we get near the pawn. Pawn down. Okay? We have some water around here. I'm thirsty. Okay. Okay, so now let's examine a mechanism by which the stronger side, so a side that has more pressure, can exploit the distant opposition. It is in fact quite simple. This is what he's saying, and consists of the conversion of the distant opposition into the close oppositions by means of outflanking. If outflanking is not possible, then possession of the distant opposition is worthless. So basically what he's saying is, if you cannot outflank anybody, distant opposition means nothing. Okay? So now we're going to go here, here. This is over here. This is gone. I think there's 2 pawns this way. Okay, so he has distant opposition. Okay, so it's white to move. You have distant opposition. This is, I'm going to give you another 30 seconds. Actually, I'll give you a minute. And please try to solve this position. And once you do, we'll be back. Okay, and that minute starts now. I'll be back. I'll get some water. Back. Okay. So, if I were in this position, I would play maybe king here, right? But if then he plays there, then we're kind of lost, right? Right. None of this works. He can't take with the king. He'll take with this. Okay. Right. So we need to make this possible. Okay, so bam. Takes. Okay, yeah, so I would, like, if this were Blitz and I didn't have time to think, I would honestly just play here. But Blitz is a time control under 5 minutes, or 5 minutes or under. It's fast chess, and Blitz is basically, it tests your consistency in chess. You want to always think about your right move. So let's try to delve deep into, without looking at the answers. Let's see. So g6. Let's say pawn takes. Okay, wait. So if g6, okay, g6. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking. g6, pawn takes. Bam. Takes. King g1. So you can't get opposition. Let's say he plays here. Then I can get opposition, right? So, and then this goes into position that we know. Alright, so king g1, king here, and then I play king f1. And he can never get opposition. Yeah, wow. I think that's it. Okay, so what happens? Okay, so what happens if we take with the king? Okay, so my king is here. So pawn push, king takes. King here, king here, king here. And I think this is a draw. Alright, let's see what the text has to say. Alright, so g6, f captures g, f5. Okay. So g6, f captures g, f5, bam. And if gf, if there, then king g1. Okay, and then king g5, king f1, and then he can't out. Yeah. Awesome. Alright, so what happens if king takes? Do they go over that? Okay, so actually I want to go over the position where. Okay, so what happens if king takes immediately? Okay, white to move. I'm just gonna put this into the engine. g6, and let's say king takes. Then you play king g2, and if king here, then king f3, and it's a draw. King g6, king f2. Okay, yeah, it's a draw. We just maintain opposition and we dance around the pawns. Okay, so let's set up the next example. Okay, and okay, so this is J. Dratina, 1907. Okay, so this is, okay, we're gonna set up a new position. Clear. Okay. Okay, great. This is the position, and I remember when I was first looking at this book, I think it was 7 years ago, 8 years ago. This position took me like an hour and a half. Now, it just looks simple. It looks super simple, but the ideas. So, the idea of outflanking really matters. Outflanking and opposition. So, this is a game where if you do not know the correct technique, you will draw a winning position. Right? And you want to be consistent with your results. If you know, like, you know it's a one position, you just have to win it. And this is winning. So I will give you 2 minutes, and I know that's unfair because I took an hour and a half. I will give you 2 minutes to solve this, and I'll provide some entertainment in the background. So go ahead, 2 minutes. we are back. We are back and welcome back. So I hope you took your time and really deciphered what this is. This builds from the last thing that he said, where outflanking, well, distant opposition doesn't mean a thing if you cannot outflank your opponent. Okay, and I wish I would have read that 7 years ago clearly, because yeah, I totally missed the point, and that's why I spent an hour and a half on this, because I couldn't find a way to win. Now, usually when I analyze, what I like to do is I don't touch the pieces. I will just sit there and calculate in my head, and I think this is the best way to do it. But I'll do it on stream with you guys, and I'll challenge you guys next time, or if you're at home, just really just try to calculate everything in your head before you set this up, or put it into a computer. Putting it into the computer, I think, is one of the worst things people do. Okay, so because a computer's not going to help you unless you're a cheater in a tournament, right? So you're not going to have access to the computer. You're not going to have access to the best move. So just play your chess and just try to get better. All right. So the idea is that if you play King E1, this line you cannot, you can't do anything with this, right? Because you cannot convert this because of this pawn, right? Just being in the way, right? And we have to notice that this is a major line, and this is a major line. So what do we do if we want to win? We need, so opposition on the E file doesn't make sense, because the pawn on D6 is preventing us from going to E5, the critical square, right? And our pawn is preventing that king to go to E6. So that means distant opposition doesn't make sense in this case. But we can outflank him, we can outmaneuver him, and get opposition at the same time, because we can shoulder him, and the correct move here is King G2. Okay, King G2, because opposition only matters if you're on this side. Okay, so now let's go over what happens. So King G2, let's say he plays, okay, so if he plays on the F file, we immediately take opposition, right? We take opposition. Okay? Going here is a mistake, because he has here. And I mean, I guess it's not that much of a mistake. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal, right? But it's better if you play here. King F2 is definitely, I think if King F3, he can play King F7, yeah, and then retreat back this way. He doesn't have to allow this to go down. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so King G2, let's say he plays King here, then you play King F3. Okay. If he plays King F6, you play King F2. If he plays King F8, you can play King F2. Critical. Don't be tricked. Don't be tricked into playing F3. And then you get a drawish position. Okay. So here, let's say he plays this, and then he plays this move, and let's say he goes up. Let's say he's like, hey, I'm confident in my position, and this is super easy to win, because you are basically trying to play on two sides. You're trying to outflank him on this side, but if he overcommits, you always have this side to push on, and outflanking this way. And remember, his pawns are in the way, and my pawn is protected. Okay? Alright, so King G2, King F6, King here, and I'll just show you that. Bam. He can't get there in time. King E7, I'm going to play around. and I'm gonna outflank him over here because I am in time and I can get opposition on this, and I'm gonna win this pawn. Okay. Let's go back to the first. So king g2. King g2. Let's switch here. King f3. Actually, I would love for a computer to play this. Okay, but let's see what he says in the text. Sorry, I got all sidetracked. Okay. So he says the opposition. Okay, taking distant opposition with king e1 leads only to a draw. The opposition on the e file is meaningless. So on one king e8, what we reviewed earlier, king e2, king e7, king e3, king e8, king e4, king e7. So he's just going, the black king is going up, down, up, down, up, down, because it doesn't really matter. Opposition on the e file doesn't matter because he cannot make progress because of this pawn on d6. And he can't get any closer. And if the white king leaves the e file, his opponent will take the opposition forever. Right? So king e8. So let's say he goes to king f2. Right? Let's say from the first position, so not from this position, but from this position, if you play king f2, then black will have the opposition, and this is a draw. And so basically wherever white goes, let's say white tries to go here now, he is not in time because black can always get opposition. And this doesn't work because of the pawn, right? I'm in the square of the pawn. Okay. Great. Alright, so next, in such situations, there's usually a major line in which it is vitally important to capture the opposition. And when the enemy king retreats from it, you must outflank him. In this instance, that would be the f file. So notice that the e file is off limits, so we have to determine where the major line is where we can gain opposition and where we should fight for opposition. Imagine that the black king was on f7. Move he just moved one to the side over here. White must outflank him and does king g2. Okay. So king g2. Let's see what the text says. King f6. King f2. So you have to maintain opposition. And what is black to do now? Moving the king forward is useless, as I've shown already. And if you retreat the king to the right, so like g7, then that doesn't really make much sense. White king advances on the left and takes the key squares on the queen side. Right, so if he goes to like g7, then we can just go around to b6, we'll take over here. So let's say here, now we just win because we go to the other side and just win. And this doesn't work, right? So, right, we can't do this because of this. Oh, sorry, oops. Because of this. Okay, and so king f2. That only leaves king e7, and then king g3. So you want to play king g3, saying, hey, if you ever come on this f file, I'm taking opposition. And basically, we're just gonna keep pushing him. So he plays king f6, very important, king f4, and if he plays, let's say, king g6, well, we can just outflank him right here because we have opposition, right? And now we get in the house. Okay, super simple, although it took me a long time, but yeah, we made distant opposition, so we made into close opposition and we won. Really cool game. So let's go into the next example. So there's a king. And I am not screaming at you guys, so I'm sorry if I'm a little bit too loud. I'm just excited. And I think this is a position. Okay, great. I'll just go right through this. So the first thing, it's white to move, and the first thing the white must do is seize the opposition. Right now, black has the opposition. Okay. And what we're gonna do is, since they cannot back up or go forward, right? They can't back up. They can't go this way, and they can't go this way. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna back up instead. And then king b6. And very important, you must play king here. So he's saying that if black's king must be first on the 6th rank, if it had been on a7 in the starting position, then king b7 will lead to a draw, since white can no longer seize the opposition. Right? So let's say it was on a7 in the starting position, and I play king here, then king b7 will lead to a draw, since white can no longer seize the opposition. Okay? But he wasn't, so here, king f6, and the rest is the standard technique of converting distant opposition into close opposition, and here the major line is the 7th rank. So, king b7, king f7, critical, right? Opposition. We want opposition. We want 3 squares, an odd number of squares away. Okay. All right. So b7, king f7, king b6, and then now we're playing king e8. Okay, and also if he plays, so let's go back on this. If he plays king b8, then we play king e6, because the major line is the 7th. So wherever he goes, then we can gain opposition. Okay, so one more time. So we play back, king here, king here, king here, maintain opposition. If he comes back, then king e8. Okay. King a7, king e7. You got to make sure that you maintain opposition. King a8, and then king d6. King b7, king d7. Again, opposition. Oops. Opposition. King b6, king c8. And yeah, it's pretty much winning from here, right? Because of here, here, here. And also, the text provides that one might also try to play here, and king c5, king c7, king b4, king b6, king captures, c5, king b3 here. Yeah. King c3, king a4, king b2, king c3, king a4, king b2, and yeah, that's a draw. So just take the easy win. Just keep outflanking your opponent. Alright, so let's go to the next one. So let's look at some Tragicomedies. So this one is by Yates and Tadakawa. Tadakawa is really, really strong. So let's see what he has to say. So there's a king on d4. Where's my king? The king's here, and it is black has a 1 position. Sorry, and it's black to move. Okay, so black has a 1 position. A, B is possible. So A captures B3 is possible. So Queen C3 is also possible. King capture recaptures B5 check.